What's up, everybody? DStyleBoxing here. Thanks for those joining me live and to those who'll be joining me in archive. Let's go ahead and talk about Vladimir Klitschko, the former reigning, defending heavyweight champion of the world. For the last since the time I've been on YouTube, I've consistently been a fan of the Klitschko brothers. Okay, I'll admit more so Vitaly than Vladimir Klitschko, but nonetheless, I was a fan of both brothers, um, and the Klitschko story is interesting to me. And you see, not every story should be the same. Every story is different. But if if you want a story of a guy that was not perfect, who was dispatched, in early parts of his career, even to where he had even won a world title already. What happened to him in the Sanders? I mean, the Purity fight, first of all, but which was his first loss back in '98, right? And then the Corey Sanders loss, I believe, in 2002, 2003. The Lamont Brewster fight in 2004, and then to go ahead and not lose again until he lost to last year, or was it the year 2015? Was it against Tyson Fury, and of course recently to Anthony Joshua? It's that says something. It says something about character. It says something about a man's will to learn, to not give up. I mean, he's literally the definition of that. Look at the fighters that if you want an example of a fighter that of proof that you can get knocked out several times and you could still come back and be a dominant champion, then you're looking at Vladimir Klitschko. Not that he, there was things out of his control that were not his fault. Like, was there a weak heavyweight? Was it a weak heavyweight era? Yes. Okay. I mean, there's no way around that. It was. But does that take away from his accomplishment? In my opinion, no. He can't control he could only fight the guys in front of him, and that's what he did. Think about it. From 2004 to 2015, fighting constant number one contender and unifying championship fights, and never losing for that long. And not only that, there's a St. Peter fight, but rarely lost rounds. And of course we got to credit the late great Emanuel Stewart for that. Okay, R.I.P. Right? What Emanuel Stewart accomplished with Vladimir Klitschko is unbelievable. I mean, we know what he did with Lennox Lewis, but to do it with Vladimir Klitschko just really shows you, and it's proof of Klitschko being a great student and Emanuel Stewart being a great teacher. And I know it wasn't always aesthetically pleasing to watch Klitschko fight. In especially in an age where a lot of you guys out there, I'm glad you're boxing fans now. I'm glad you're into the sport, but it's a lot of people that came into the sport when welterweights and junior middleweights and how featherweights, lightweights, when those divisions were getting all the attention, all the airtime on HBO, and you're watching guys, where they're throwing 60, 70, 80, sometimes 100 punches per round, and you're used to that, and they're obviously not throwing with the velocity and the power of a heavyweight, but they're throwing far more punches and faster punches, and you're used to that. So when a lot of people started watching Klitschko, they're like, what the hell is this? They weren't used to watching big men, especially not someone 6'6", like a Vladimir Klitschko, or even taller than that in a Vladimir Klitschko. I'm sorry, in a Vitaly Klitschko. And but me, I definitely appreciated Vladimir Klitschko. I appreciated a heavyweight that, again, besides everything out of his control, stayed in phenomenal shape, trained year round, never got himself out of shape, had the discipline to do it for that long. Because he was always in shape, but I mean, just I'm talking specifically from to be mentally ready fight after fight from 2004 to 2015, and I think a little over. I mean, it's he lost in 2004 when he was knocked out by Brewster. I'm gonna pull up BoxRec. Sorry, I'm gonna pull that up while I pull that up. Um, because I don't know when that. I know late 2015 was the Tyson Fury fight. I don't know when the Lamont it probably was 2003, 2005. I don't know. We'll check it out. But anyway, what can you say, right? I wanted to. I'm going to first read this this statement by Vladimir Klitschko. Let's see if I could pull this up here. All right. Klitschko said the following. I quote, I deliberately took a few weeks to make my decision, to make sure I had enough distance from the fight at Wembley Stadium. As an amateur and a professional, I have achieved everything I dreamed of, and now I want to start my second career after sports. I would have never imagined that I would have such a long and incredibly successful boxing career. I'm very thankful for this. Thanks to everyone who has always supported me, especially my family, my team, and my many fans. Well, there you go, right? Now, ironically, I know he's coming off a loss. I know he lost by knockout against Joshua. But let me say this. It's like I'm going to be going backwards here, but in that Joshua fight, if I'm being honest, right, when Joshua hurt him the first time, what was that, the fourth round or fifth round? I forgot. When Joshua hurt him and dropped him, I felt like the shades, and this is a much older version of Klitschko. I felt like, oh, this is another Corey Sanders fight. He's out. I thought Klitschko was done. Okay, but the fact that he survived that round, and not only that, came back the next round and hurt Joshua, dropped him, and then again, I thought the fight was over, especially when I saw Joshua breathing through his mouth. I thought he punched himself out, right? Now, people will say, well, Klitschko should have pressed on the gas. Klitschko should have done this, should have done that. I mean, remember, it coulda, woulda, shoulda. Who knows, right? Maybe if he stepped on the gas, he would have gotten knocked out that round. Who knows? We don't know what would have happened. But nonetheless, I mean, he kind of overcame that. Yes, he was knocked out later, but there's one thing can never take away from Klitschko, and it's this. In all his fight, every fight he got knocked out in. Okay, now in this one, he was knocked out later in the fight, and I think age caught up with him. Plus, Joshua is just a super athlete and a tremendous fighter. When you put those two things together, it was kind of bound to happen. But Klitschko, I mean, yeah, he got too exhausted at times. Yes, Corey Sanders scrambled his brain, but he never, he wasn't a coward, man. Like he always got back up, or at least attempted to get back up, and he always tried to keep fighting. And when you look at the narrative that people have of the Klitschkos, boy, are they wrong, right? Sure, with Vitaly, you have what happened in the Chris Burt fight, but to be honest with you, that's a real serious injury, right? And if he would have kept fighting, who knows? That could have been his last fight, right? So I couldn't give him a pass in that, okay? That injury that Vitaly had. But with the two Klitschko brothers, it's like they were stereotyped to be these European fighters that, You know, they don't have any dog in them. Like they don't have it. They don't have a fight in them. Like, you know, it's and that's not true. Like that's nowhere near true. And you can't fight in a high level in boxing and be successful for that long, because cowards, they don't last in the ring, right? As far as I'm talking in that high of a standard, okay? I don't mean this regular. I mean like in the boxing world at an elite level, you know, you will be exposed if you don't like it when shit gets too dim and too dark, and if it's, because quitting is easy. Quitting is a very easy thing to do, all right? And if you're the type that's going to quit, you're going to quit, and you're going to quit often. You're not just going to do it at one time, right? Victor Ortiz, like, you know, it's going to happen, right? But look, he had some terrible fights. The Bragimov fight comes to mind. I remember that fight. Okay, there was a blizzard in New York, a blizzard, and 11,000 people still showed up to Madison Square Garden. And boy, I'm pretty sure they wished they were home. All right, but it was just a terrible performance. He won every round, but it was just an awkward fight to watch. It's one of the worst heavyweight fights I've ever seen. And if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. And if you never watched it, Bragimov versus Klitschko, do yourself a favor and don't go watch it. Don't do that to yourselves, okay? I liked his first St. Peter fight where St. Peter dropped him a couple times, and again, like, he kept getting up. You know, I think he got chopped like 3 or 4 times. He just kept getting up. I mean, that's something, man, and that's character. I finally got the Boxer Cup. Here I'm gonna start. Of course, look, Ross Purdy. We all know about that back in '98. Okay, then he went on a winning streak for about 4 years. The first time I ever saw Klitschko fight, ever, like I saw him live on TV, the first time ever, was when he fought Ray Mercer. Okay, I didn't know much about Klitschko, right? And I had no idea who was going to win, but he destroyed Ray Mercer, right? He really dispatched Ray Mercer. He put a beating on him. This was it was an older version of Ray Mercer. He was no longer in his prime, but he put a beating on him, right? And then, of course, he had beaten Chris Bird, actually, a couple years before that. He lost to Corey Sanders. That was an RIP to Corey Sanders, by the way, right? That was a phenomenal performance by Corey Sanders. And in a ironic way, right, it's how do you turn that into a positive? You know, how do you possibly turn getting knocked out and embarrassed like that, you know, in the ring into a positive? Well, you got to work at it. You know, you just got to work at it. And that's what he did. I believe I could be wrong about this, but I believe his first fight with Emmanuel Stewart was the Lamont Brewster fight, right? And ironically, I could be wrong about that, but anybody could correct me if you want, if I am. But the Lamont Brewster fight, I mean, it's just after that happened, most fighters would have been done. Like it's this. After that happened, no one would have told you, "Oh yeah, Klitschko, he's gonna be a long time reigning world champion. I guarantee it." Everybody would tell you, "Are you crazy? He's got knocked out twice in the last 3 fights, or last 4 fights." So nobody would have believed you, right? But he moved on. He stayed with Emmanuel Stewart. That was a very good decision. It took Emmanuel Stewart a couple fights to settle in. And Klitschko went from being a very exciting yet vulnerable fighter, okay? Like he was very exciting to watch, okay? And like go watch that Ray Mercer fight. I mean, he had a very exciting style. But he left himself very vulnerable. Obviously, he got knocked out twice, okay? And in the heavyweights, I mean, anybody could get knocked out at heavyweight. Those are some big dudes hitting with a lot of force, you know? Like, yes, there's guys that have more power than others, but everybody's got power at heavyweight, right? So it's something we have to keep in mind, all right? Emmanuel Stewart, it's like a catch-22, right? He taught Vladimir how to be, more cerebral in the ring. Okay, a lot of that holding you saw Lennox Lewis do as well, right? That was from Emmanuel Stewart, right? It's a lot of the patience that you saw. All of a sudden, he was a lot more patient. That was from Emmanuel Stewart. Now, the one thing that Stewart never quite accomplished with Vladimir, right? I think if he would have had Vitaly, he could have done it. But with Vladimir, he didn't quite get it balanced. He went from one extreme. He went from completely reckless to, well, not completely, but you know what I mean. Exciting but vulnerable, but effective, because he still won like a WBO title, but vulnerable, right? To maybe a little too patient and a little too cerebral, right? And Emmanuel kind of wanted that balance. Like, he wanted Klitschko to control a fight. He wanted him to be patient, but he wanted him to let his hands go more when the time was right. And it never quite clicked. It never quite clicked, and I guess what happened was, it's an old saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So it's what Klitschko was doing was working. And you would see Emmanuel Stewart, get frustrated. I think he knew, okay, you're controlling this guy. You got like 6-7 rounds in the bank. He's not doing anything. Take him out now, right? And sometimes Klitschko would. But like a fight that stands out to me is the Eddie Chambers fight, right? Klitschko was easily controlling Eddie Chambers, but he did the same thing for 11 and a half rounds. And Emmanuel Stewart was getting extremely frustrated because, like, he knew you couldn't knock this guy out. He ended up knocking him out. I believe it was a 12th round, but he ended up knocking him out. But it was – that corner was interesting, man. And a lot of people say, well, that's just the way Stewart is. But I don't think he ever reached, like, I don't know. Was there ever a fight that you could say, oh, yeah, that made Emmanuel Stewart happy? Like, I don't think there was ever that fight. And every time you watch Vladimir Klitschko fight, it's like, okay, he's winning. He's dominating. But I almost felt like he could take this guy out right now. But he wants to take zero risk. Like, Emmanuel Stewart taught him how to win rounds by taking no risk. And he's liking it. Like, he started liking this. Right? He would go, like, a lot of times just jabbing at times. So that was, so yes, it was frustrating to watch him at times. But at the end of the day, you can't dispute the results. Okay, at the end of the day, you can't dispute all those W's. You can't dispute all those title defenses. You just can't. Right? By the way, I remember Vitaly Klitschko too. Okay, telling Vladimir, "Come on!" Like, he would look frustrated at times as well, right? But it's hard. It's hard to tell a guy. Okay, it's hard to say, "Hey, come on!" Well, when he's winning, look, he was winning this whole time, and I think it was always in the back of his head what happened in the Corey Sanders fight, what happened in the Brewster fight, and he felt content and happy with the results. He was winning. He was defending his championship, and he didn't feel he had to do more than that, But and hey, you can't dispute the results, and he did have knockouts. Like, I think maybe one fight where I could say Klitschko looked good was maybe the Tony Thompson fights, and I believe he fought him twice, and the Pulev fight. And for whatever reason, when he couldn't clinch him the way he would clinch the smaller guys, he was kind of forced to use his skills more. And you know, the fights turned out to be more exciting, and you saw more out of Klitschko. You saw more vicious Klitschko. But when he didn't have to do that, like if he could beat you on first gear, that's what he would do. He wouldn't go to second gear unless you made him. You know, so what are you going to do, right? Whereas Vitaly, it looked like he was playing with the guys at times, and then he'd step on the pedal. Okay, I mean, but Vitaly had more of a killer instinct than his brother. I think that's fair to say, right? And then again, Vitaly never got knocked out unconscious. You know what I mean? Like, so he not in the boxing ring. So it's like a little different, right? But anyway, great career. You know, I forgot to mention he lost the decision to Tyson Fury, and him going out the way he did, like on his shield, in a very exciting fight. You know, after all the years of okay, you're winning, but come on. After all those years, I mean, he lost the fight, but he has an all-time heavyweight fight under his belt. When people start talking about, hey, let's talk about the most exciting heavyweight title fights of all time. You know, at some point, you know, in many conversations, that fight's going to come up. Okay, whereas the last, you know, since 2004, you couldn't really name a Klitschko fight. You could say, oh, yeah, that was an all-time great fight. You know, but now he has that. Like, that was the one thing missing. Would have been better if he would have won? Yes. But at the very least, he has that now. His brother had that. Ironically, he lost too against Lennox Lewis, but he still had like a great fight that people could talk about and say, hey, I remember that fight. That was an exciting fight. That was a fucking war, right? He has that fight now, you know, and so there you go. All right. Anyway, this is DStyleBoxing, and hey, keep it boxing. Salute to Vladimir Klitschko, man. I was always a fan. Peace.